Hello and welcome to my page, Safe Space. I hope everyone is having a great start of their week. So, this week's topic is going to be about guilt tripping, the guilt tripper. Now, we've discussed it or I've mentioned it in other topics, but we really never got an opportunity to explore what guilt tripping is and how it makes us feel. So pack your bags. We're going to explore the guilt tripper. So let's take a look at what guilt tripping is. Guilt tripping is when you cause a person to feel guilt or a sense of obligation to change their behavior or actions toward the guilt tripper. The guilt tripper may lean on you for something you already feel guilty about or create a selfish scenario to manipulate your feelings. This is where you will see a lot of your emotional blackmail. Emotional blackmail is where someone is using your emotions to control you. So how do you know if someone is guilt tripping you? Well, one thing a guilt tripper might do is compare your ability to do something to their ability to do something. Let's say it's a work performance thing. I'll use myself as an example. I'm a truck driver. Let's say I'm dating another truck driver. And I say, hey, hon, I drove 100 miles today. So what the guilt tripper will do is they'll say, well, you only drove 100 miles today? I drove 105 miles today. And this is to make you feel bad that you didn't accomplish what they did, and now you need to step up and accomplish the same things that they say they are accomplishing. Another thing a guilt tripper might do is they will remind you of your past mistakes. A guilt tripper will also remind you of their past favors that they performed for you. I did this for you. What are you going to do for me? And we see that a lot, not just guilt tripping and love bombing, just it's a form of toxic manipulation. The guilt tripper might also ignore you and not respond to you or give you the silent treatment. And this is with a guilt tripper. Sometimes as human beings, we do ignore people and we will give you the silent treatment because maybe in a healthier person, a healthy minded person, they may need to process things before they can address the issue. But when it comes to a guilt tripper, this person is doing it intentionally to make you feel a sense of fear or obligation. The guilt tripper may also disapprove of you through their body language, their tone of voice, and their facial expressions. They will also make sarcastic comments about your progress and your efforts. There are 4 main types of guilt tripping. The first one is manipulation, which we're all becoming more familiar with manipulation because we're learning that manipulation is kind of in everything. And there is a toxic manipulation, and there are also positive forms of manipulation, which is that which is that positive reinforcement, right? So with the guilt tripper, manipulation is their goal is to manipulate someone into doing something that they normally wouldn't do. And this is to make you feel guilty, to pressure you. Maybe you've worked all day, you're exhausted, and the guilt tripper demands and expectation out of you, and rather than them showing you empathy that you worked all day or whatever the case may be, they want something and they want it right now. And now I'm going to make you feel bad, because what the guilt tripper will do is say, well, I worked all day too, so why can't you do this for me? The second form that a guilt tripper may use is conflict avoidance. This allows the guilt tripper to get away with whatever they want without really having to engage in direct conflict. The third form that a guilt tripper may use is moral education. They try to get you to do something that they feel is more moral for you and more right for you. And our fourth form of guilt tripping is illicit sympathy. This is where they try to gain sympathy from others by casting themselves in a role of someone who has been harmed by another person's actions. This is where they become the victim, even though they're victimizing you through this form of guilt-tripping manipulation. Now they have become the victim because it had to be something you did that harmed them, that caused this reaction. Guilt tripping can lead to lasting feelings of resentment and bitterness towards the guilt tripper. Guilt tripping can have two effects that I've learned on their victim or on a person. One effect is the person can act on their persuasive message from the guilt tripper by trying to appease them and do as they say so they can get the guilt tripper off their back. Or this person may act out on the guilt tripper because they want to assume and regain their freedom from that guilt tripper. They no longer want to go through this guilt tripping with this person. I want to take myself back, is what this person is saying to the guilt tripper. So how do you deal with a guilt tripper? Well, first, you should acknowledge their request. You don't have to act on what they're requesting of you, but at least acknowledge it. Let them know, I hear you, I understand how you feel and where you're coming from. But again, if it's something that can harm you or something that makes you feel uncomfortable, you don't have to act on it. But to keep peace with the guilt tripper, acknowledging it is a good way to sustain things, to keep it more on a level ground. Another thing you can do is share your feelings. When dealing with a guilt tripper, it's all about them and how you made them feel. You have feelings too. Let them know how this type of manipulation makes you feel and how it could possibly be creating bad energy or toxic thoughts or bitterness toward them if they continue this toxic behavior. And lastly, and you're going to hear me say this a lot, especially when it comes to the forms of manipulation or verbal abuse or any form of abuse. Assert yourself, okay? Set boundaries with this person. Set boundaries with your guilt tripper. Limit the access you give to them. Limit the access of your emotions and your feelings. And sometimes you have to limit the things you say to this person so that you don't give them ammunition to guilt trip you. Guilt trippers are always looking for a response